Welcome back. Prof. Bowden here again with the next installment of our video series on building a basic website. This time around, we'll get our hands dirty with the HTML code that will create the structure of our website. Let's dive in, shall we? First, open your text editor and create a new document. We'll be saving this a bit differently than we have saved the previous files. When you save this file, save it in a new folder. Call the folder My Website Files and call the first file myfirstwebsite.html. As always, remember where you saved it. We'll be coming back to this file a lot during the rest of the video series. If your new file already has this default code in it, you should be all set. If not, you can get the necessary code from the description of this video. Remember, we're going to be working with XHTML strict, not transitional. Change any instance of transitional to strict. Our first task is to change the title. If you remember from last time, we'll be working in the head area at the moment. Highlight any text between the title and /title tags, and we'll replace it with My Awesome Website, or whatever you'd like to call it instead. Now that the title is set, it's time to start laying down the code that will provide the structure to our website. Click on the first open line after the start of the body section. We're going to make a container to hold the rest of our website. Think of it like a box that we're going to put everything else in. We could try to do this with a table, but that would end up severely limiting us later. Instead, it's time to learn a new HTML tag. Meet the div element. A div is nothing more than an empty container for other HTML elements. Let's make our first div. Type open bracket, div, close bracket, and then finish it with open bracket / div, close bracket. This particular div is going to be special. It will be different from the other div tags on our page, so we're going to mark it as such. To do this, we're going to start working with attributes, special characteristics that we can define about our elements. We're going to be working with the class attribute right now. Think of a class as a category. If we were working with animals instead of HTML elements, we might think of classes such as dogs, cats, birds, etc. And yes, I know that's not correct in terms of biology. Just roll with it as an example. We're going to make this div a member of the container class. We just made this container thing up. It doesn't have any built-in special meaning in the HTML language. You can make whatever classes your heart desires in HTML. Place your cursor after the open bracket div, but before the close bracket. Skip one space, not a line, and type class. Now that we've invoked the class attribute, we need to assign it a value. Type equals, open quote, container, end quote to accomplish this. Now, place your cursor between the end of the div class equals container and before the /div. Hit enter a couple of times. Remember, HTML doesn't care about skipped lines, but it will make it much easier for us to work with our code if we keep things spaced out a bit. On the first line we just skipped, we're going to create another div. This will be our header, where we put our logo on the page. To do this, type open bracket, div, space, class, equals, open quote, header, close quote, close bracket, open bracket, / div, close bracket. Inside of this new div, we're going to add some text. Place the cursor inside the div we just created, before the /div. Since this is our header, we'll be revisiting our large heading tag, the h1 tag. Type open bracket, h1, close bracket, this is my header area, open bracket / h1, close bracket. Now, we'll move on to the next element. Place the cursor after the /div from our header, and hit enter to drop to the next line. This will be our navigation bar. Let's make another div with a class of navbar. To do this, type open bracket, div, space, class, equals, open quote, navbar, close quote, close bracket, open bracket, / div, close bracket. The text in this area will be a bit smaller. Time for another new tag. This time around, we'll be creating paragraph text, so we'll want to learn the P tag. Place your cursor inside the navbar div and type open bracket p close bracket. This is the navbar area. Open bracket /p close bracket. Now move the cursor to after the end of that newest div element and drop down another line. Time for the side menu div. Type open bracket div space class equals open quote side menu close quote close bracket open bracket p close bracket. This is the side menu area. Open bracket /p close bracket open bracket /div close bracket. It's important to note that HTML works from the inside out. If we create a div that contains a p or any element, we need to finish that second element before we finish the div. In other words, if we add /div/p instead of /p/div, our code would be poorly formed and not function properly. Drop down another line. You probably have the hang of making these div elements now. Pause the video and make another div with the content class, and the last div after that with the footer class. When you're done, come on back here and check your code. Okay, here's what our finished code should look like. Time to check out our end result. Save the file, navigate to where you saved it, and open it in the browser. Ta-da! Okay, so maybe you were expecting something a bit more exciting. Remember though, this is just the structure of our page. Next time, we'll start working on one of the most basic forms of interaction, menus of clickable links. That should finish off our basic HTML structure for now, and after that, we'll get into the start of working with CSS. See you then!